So you're bored at home, are you? Huh? Nothing to do. Yeah, we're heading towards the winter. You know what I mean? There's a lot of indoors time. Why don't you play a little game called Raid Shadow Legends? You could be waiting to get your hair cut, you know, in the barbers. You could play a raid then. You can play a raid while you're in an Uber, in a restaurant. You know, if you're bored of the person who you're talking to. That always helps. And if you're going to do that, use the link in my description. I know a lot of yous out there have been waiting a bated breath, wondering what my favourite bit about raid is. Well, I'll not keep yous waiting any longer. The Doom Tower. The Doom Tower, as it happens. What, you've never tried it? What is wrong with you? It's basically a big prison, and it was working out well for everyone for quite a while, you know, keeping the baddies in. But now Searoth is back in the world. Ooh. Let's just say the prison ain't like it used to be. But luckily, they've got people like me and you to get in there and crack a few heads. And I do love cracking heads. And we're going to crack a few heads right now with my new champion, Mage Killer. If only this was real life, huh? They don't make them like that on Earth, do they? Let battle commence. Float like a butterfly. Sting like a bee. That actually worked quite well. God, me and this other girl are kicking ass. I'm going to get this one. There you go. Dead. I'm doing major damage here, and as we know, the fastest way to level up your champion is through farming on the campaign. Victory is mine. I know what you're thinking. What else is new in Raid, Bri? Well, don't call me Bri. That's my friends, alright? There's plenty new things, if you must know. We've got special events every day for you. Awesome new champions all the time. But the big update is the Guardian Ring. It's a huge new feature that gives you a load of different ways to use your champions, including a whole faction Guardian system, which is a new way to get legendary champions that you missed out on previously, and an entirely new way to upgrade your favorite ones. It's a massive deal, and it's something that myself and Raid are very excited for. With all these updates, Raid has never been in a better place. With more giant updates around the corner, there's never been a better time to jump into Raid. And if you want an even bigger head start, hit the link in the description or scan the QR code. New players will get an epic hero in Chonaru, who was amazing in the Doom Tower, as well as 200k silver, 1 XP boost, and 1 energy refill. And as well as that, 1 ancient shard so you can summon a champion as soon as you get in the game. So what are you waiting for? Hit the link in the description below and check out Raid, but for now, enjoy the podcast.
It's August 18th, 1960. Cassius Clay of the United States takes on Ziggy Petrikowski of Poland in the finals of the Olympic Light Heavyweight Boxing Championship in Rome. Cassius like lightning in there. An avalanche of leather sends Pietrkowski into the ropes. Clay is way ahead on points, and he knows it. He's boxing with all the confidence in the world, realizing he is only moments away from the gold medal. And there's the bell ending the fight. Cassius Clay has presented the coveted gold medal for his tremendous victory in the light heavyweight division of the Olympic Boxing Championships.
I'm defeating America's so-called threats or enemies. And the flag is going dun 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 dun. And I done whooped the world for America. I took my gold medal, thought I'd invented something. I said, man, I know I'm gonna get my people freedom there. I'm the champion of the whole world, the Olympic champion. I know I can eat downtown now. And I went downtown that day, had my big old medal on, and went in the restaurants. At that time, black things wasn't integrated. The black folks couldn't eat downtown. The lady said, we don't serve Negroes. And I had to leave that restaurant in my hometown where I went to church and served in their Christianity and fought. My daddy fought in all the wars. Just wanted to gold medal and couldn't eat downtown. I said, something's wrong.
Why do you insist on being called Muhammad Ali now?
That's my original name. That's a black man name. Cassius Clay was my slave name. I'm no longer a slave.
You told me your name was Cassius Clay a few years ago.
I never told you my name was Cassius Clay. My name is Muhammad Ali, and you will announce it right there in the center of that ring after the fight if you don't do it now.
Mr. Muhammad Ali has just refused to be inducted into the United States Armed Forces.
You my opposer when I want freedom. You my opposer when I want justice. You my opposer when I want equality. You won't even stand up for me in America for my religious beliefs, and you want me to go somewhere and fight, but you won't even stand up for me here at home.
I want to believe that I'm that guy. My ego tells me that, but the reality of it is I love this life that I have. I might not want to give this up just to prove that I'm a tough guy, but Ali would. Ali will fight you till he dies. You have to kill him. He's not gonna quit. When you see greatness, then you know that's not me. Ali's a giant.
I told you I'm the real champion. I told you that I was the greatest of all time. I'm gonna float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. There's not a heavyweight who can even keep up with me. Well, I want all of them to be there, and I'm gonna shut up all of his mouth. I'm gonna do something to Joe Frazier that might be illegal. He might be great, but he'll fall in age. I don't get hit. Like I don't get hit. I'm so pretty. I don't think that there's no heavyweight alive who couldn't beat me. I know they're not alive.
I can drown a drink of water and kill a dead tree. Wait till you see Muhammad Ali.
I'm gonna show you how great I am. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
Welcome back to the Pain Game podcast. Today's guest is the grandson of the greatest fighter of all time, Muhammad Ali. It's Nico Ali Walsh. Welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for getting up at 10 a.m. Las Vegas time to make this work for me. This really goes back to my school days when I was like an 8-year-old kid in the library and looking at books and reading about the greatest boxer of all time. And to see that you're carrying this on for your grandfather, it's amazing. And what makes it even more special is you genuinely have talent from what I've seen, and you're getting trained by the same coach as Tyson Fury. No pressure.
No.
Everything's set up for you to win, hopefully. But how long have you been boxing for now?
Well, I would mess around in the ring since I was a little kid. I was doing exhibitions and whatnot for like children's cancer events and that kind of thing. But I want to say I took it serious when I was 14.
Well, that's good, because unfortunately in boxing, very few seem to make it unless they start young.
Right.
Like, was it like Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder are a couple of exceptions, and they're like giant athletes. Exactly. The rest, it's from childhood. So like, I know you have another second generation boxer in the family, Layla, who obviously went on to become a legend in women's boxing. How are the family feeling about you following the family job, so to speak?
Like, my mom didn't want me to box, obviously, because she's my mom. And I would say the women in my family didn't want to see me, getting hurt and that kind of thing. But the main person in my family who encouraged me to box and actually pushed me towards it was my grandfather. And that's really all I needed was, his blessing. And I said, okay, this is what I'm going to do.
Wow. I mean, it almost feels like I'm speaking to Muhammad Ali himself, because this is the closest thing I'm ever going to get. And he meant so much to so many people. And I'm sure you guys feel the love around the world still. If anything, even after his passing, it almost feels like he's, I don't know, like the god of boxing. Like, this guy, his shadow looms over the entire sport. Like,
I mean, it's amazing. It's an honor that I'm witnessing the love and I get to appreciate it, because at the end of the day, he meant a great deal to the world, but to me, he's just my grandfather. But it means so much to me to know that so many people loved someone that I just see as family. So it's really awesome.
And I seen some of the photographs of you and him as a kid, and it's very heartwarming. You did get a totally different angle to him than everybody else. We seen, the smooth talker, the guy who made everyone laugh, the guy who made everyone cheer, and the guy who flipped people's emotions from wanting to lose to wanting them to win over the years. And you got granddad. What was he like as a granddad?
I would say I didn't receive the braggadocious and like yelling side of him, that side that he gave like Joe Frazier and George Foreman. I didn't see that side, but I saw the funny side, the heartwarming side. That was what I grew up with. And obviously he didn't speak as much growing up with me as he did in his interviews. But when he did, it was just, we were constantly laughing together. So what you guys saw on tape, that's the way he was. He was just such a genuine person.
Yeah, that I seen some clips of him later on in his life, and that sense of humor definitely carried through. I seen him playing jokes on interviewers, where
Yes.
I think there was one of his daughters was saying like, "Oh, there's this part of his condition that makes him do this," and then he like lunges at the end.
Yes.
I
So he never lost his sense of humor, like ever. He never lost that. He would, make jokes at the wrong time, but he was just so funny.
When did you realize he wasn't just your grandfather? How early can you remember that?
I remember I was 12 years old, and he had a 70th birthday bash here in Las Vegas, and all these celebrities that I looked up to, all these celebrities that I listened to their music, I watched their films, they were all at birthday party. And I was like, what are these guys doing at my grandfather's birthday party? That's so weird. And they're all singing him happy birthday. Mm-hmm. So I started realizing then that, a lot of people know him, not just people in my neighborhood, because that's what I thought before.
And did people treat you differently because you were, his grandson? Yeah,
I've always felt the pressure of being his grandson. If I didn't get into boxing, I would have felt it in any category of life. Because even when I was in school as a little kid, I felt the pressure of getting good grades and acting right just because of my grandfather.
Yeah, when I watched your post-fight interviews, I was like, okay, there's confidence there, but it ain't. You very much your own guy, and you're quite a humble guy, actually, very respectful, but very intelligent. That really came across. I mean, how old are you again?
I just turned 21 in July.
Wow. I mean, you're very grounded. Who do you think has made you like that? Is it your mother?
Yeah, you know what? My mom is obviously my grandfather is my mom's dad, and she's the twin, as everybody calls her. She obviously we grew up with my grandfather, and she just took all the lessons that he taught her, and then she taught me them. I would say I got it from my mom, and she got it from him.
I seen her cheering you on in the crowd, and in your first couple of fights, and the crowd chanting Ali. It was just so powerful. I mean, what did that feel like to be in that ring and have people chanting Ali?
I mean, that was my first fight, and that was crazy. I mean, there were so many aspects of that fight that were just so like destined to happen. I was wearing my grandfather's shorts for that fight.
Wow.
And I wasn't even supposed to be wearing those shorts. I brought them on my trip as a memento, and my shorts that I was supposed to wear ended up not being ready. So I ended up having to wear my grandfather's shorts, and just hearing his name being chanted is something I've only seen in black and white films, of like Joe Frazier fights and whatnot. So hearing his name being chanted, it like brought him back for the night. He was completely like, I felt like he was there that night.
Bro, I'm getting like goosebumps, like honestly, like.
Yeah, I get goosebumps every time I think about it because it was so weird. It felt so surreal.
Yeah, the emotion in the room, it really came through the screen, like to see, because the camera was on your mother a lot as well, and that whenever they do that, obviously there's emotion there, but because we feel like we know your family through all of the documentaries, and your mother's a very good speaker as well, I noticed, so like feel like we kind of know you guys, and yeah, it was just heartwarming, and I think everyone naturally is going to root for you to do well now. How do you feel you did in those first couple of fights so far?
Well, I loved my first fight. That was my first time being out on that kind of stage, and I felt like I handled the pressure and the crowd very well. It didn't affect me at all, really, because I just felt so much power on my shoulders, carrying the legacy, my family's support, everyone else's support. And my second fight went very well. And I'm looking on this next fight that I have coming up, December 11th, is at Madison Square Garden. So, my grandfather had 8 fights there. He fought his first fight with Joe Frazier was there. So it's like just repeating history like this is just, it takes away all the fear and pressure a normal boxer would have. And it's like, it's empowering. It really is.
I love the way you're looking at this because, some people who aren't mentally as strong as you would crumble potentially under this. And the fact that you're seeing this all as a positive is fantastic because, you know, I just seen the other day, the UFC are having an event at Madison Square Garden, and you had one of the champions talking about what Madison Square Garden means. And one of the four names, they named a wrestler, they named a rock band, and Muhammad Ali. And, you know, that's his place that you're going to, really. So your ability to deal with pressure immediately struck me because there was no waiting around. There was no tentativeness in the ring. It was all business the minute that bell went. And you throw, if I was to compare you to any boxer I've seen recently, you kind of reminded me a bit of Ryan Garcia. You really throw your punches, like you put everything into them when you let it go, and you've got the speed and you've got good feet. Naturally, it's in the genes. Is that a deliberate thing in terms of, you know, the way you move? Is that a conscious thing, or is that just how you feel comfortable? Or
honestly, as much as people say I've been floating like a butterfly in the ring, it's solely because of my trainer, Sugar Hill. That's the style he teaches. And, you know, he's one of the people that, again, you know, I'm blessed that I'm able to deal with this pressure. You know, it's a lot of pressure. And I didn't know if I'd be able to handle it, but I'm here and I'm able to handle it. And it's solely because of the way I was raised and how I'm trained. So I've got to thank Sugar for, you know, the way that I've been moving and the way I've been performing.
You know, despite you coming across as a really nice guy, and when I've seen people interview you, you've got that youthful excitement and you're enjoying this whole process. But, you know, naturally there's a bad man underneath that, and in the ring that comes out. And I was sort of wondering, like, do you think as your career goes on, that side of you will come out more when the competitiveness gets intensified and people maybe on your level a bit more?
Absolutely. You know, I've always been a fan of watching trash talker. You know, my grandfather being the main one, Tyson Fury being, you know, the king of trash talking of this generation. And it's all to sell fights. And, you know, it takes an animal to get into the ring, you know, to excel in the ring, I would say. It's very interesting because you look at someone like Mike Tyson, who was an animal in the ring and outside the ring. You would see in interviews, he was just very mean, you know, but that's not the way he is, you know. But my grandfather fought with like love, I would say. And it's very strange to say that you're fighting somebody with love, but that's kind of what he did. He was fighting for his people and for his religion. So I would say that's the same thing with me.
You know, that's deep, like, and I agree with you. I think when I watched your grandfather's fights, his ability to take punishment, his ability to get up and keep going, it had to be out of love, because fear doesn't carry you through what he went through. And I think, ironically, you mentioned Mike Tyson, and I've heard Mike Tyson describe his feelings in the ring and how fearful he was at times and how it made him as aggressive as he had to be. But I don't know if you've heard Mike speak on your grandfather. I mean,
yeah, I have.
Powerful, like
very.
Jeez, when you can reduce a bad man like Mike Tyson to tears, just merely speaking on him, and to quote him, I think he said, "I'm afraid to go to the places that Muhammad Ali would go to," and he was a giant, and he was willing to die to prove his point. That sort of thing. It's like, wow. That's when you know you're a legend. When today's generation's legend, Mike Tyson, looks at Ali as if I can't even compare.
And,
so powerful.
You know, that's very interesting. It's very interesting, and I've always loved seeing, you know, his interviews talking about my grandfather. And, you know, it's most boxers fight out of aggression. They fight out of fear, believe it or not. But you get people like my grandfather and people like Manny Pacquiao. They fight out of love. And I really do believe that when you reach that level of fighting out of love, you're able to excel far beyond the average person.
And I think that this is where Tyson Fury's recent success may have come in, because now that he's trying to win fights in the name of mental health, and how he channels that. Exactly, he said, like, when I get knocked down, I think if I get up, I'm showing all those people out there what they can do. And the parallels between Fury and Ali, don't get me wrong, I mean, there's a difference, but it is nice to see that there are completely. Yeah. There's similarities.
He's one of my favorite fighters to date.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And it's hard fighting for one person yourself. You know, you get people like my grandfather, who's like a larger than life figure, and you wonder why does he seem like such a king? Why does he seem so large? It's because he stood for everybody, you know, and Tyson Fury does that. He stands for all people suffering with mental health, and, you know, and that's why he seems like a larger than life figure today. It's the people that fight for everyone else that they get to that point, that legendary status.
What did you think of Tyson Fury's last fight? You know, the getting up multiple times and finishing Deontay. It shades of your grandfather. What was it like watching that for you? I think you were there, if I'm right.
Yeah, I was there, and it was so nerve-wracking because, you know, obviously I have a vested interest in him and, you know, Sugar, who's training him. So, and it was such an amazing fight. I truly do believe that Tyson Fury's top 5 heavyweights of all time. And yeah, I mean, that was just an amazing fight. And like I said, he fights for more than just himself. That's why he's able to do the things that he can do.
I would love to go back in time with you and to a time where you and I weren't alive, but I'm sure we've both heard a lot, and I'm sure you've heard a lot more than I have, and talk about your grandfather's life a bit more. Is that okay, bro?
Yeah.
Because I've been watching documentaries and all sorts, and and like America back then seemed like such a different place. He was from Louisville, and when Muhammad would talk about, you know, not being able to be served in restaurants despite being an Olympic champion, you know, that's quite mind blowing for me now because of the world we live in. And have your family educated you on sort of what he would face back then?
Yeah, I mean, I was 5 years old learning about the civil rights movement and learning about my grandfather's part in it. So, you know, I would say my grandfather had such strong conviction towards race and religion, and that's exactly how I was raised. That's exactly how I am. So I know all about that stuff, and you're right. I mean, the world we live in today is, you know, so different compared to the world he grew up in.
For him to join Islam at the time, you know, you got athletes these days sort of trying to make statements, but you know, that was a shock. Right. It was a shock to the world. Like, who does this guy think he is? And they consistently kept calling him Cassius Clay. And many of his black fighters who he was fighting refused to call him Muhammad, and it felt like there was a strong dislike from the mainstream media that this guy was as good as he was, because he was sort of a thorn in the side of the status quo, and he had to face that every day.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, the What's My Name fight is what they call it with Ernie Terrell, and every time someone didn't call him by his name, he destroyed him. Because he was very serious about that. And I never saw my grandfather as serious as he was during the Ernie Terrell fight. Yeah. He was very serious, and he punished him. He could have taken him out early on, I believe. But he just punished him for several rounds. And that just shows how serious he was about his religion.
Yeah, he used fighting as a way of sending message out there of, right, you will respect us, you will respect our religion, you will respect my people. And it brought sport into a whole new place where all of a sudden, you know, sport is seen as something where we take our mind off real life. We forget about our religion and our politics and our struggles, and we, you know, watch it, eat popcorn and think nothing, you know. But he made it impossible to ignore. He was like, we've got issues, and I'm going to force people to listen through my winning and being heavyweight champion. I guess to this day, no one's done anything even remotely close, because no one's willing to sacrifice and put themselves out there to be shot at, almost quite literally.
Yeah.
Put themselves on the chopping block and go, well, you know, I'm going to use my fame and my name to promote a different way of life. And I mean, he must have feared for his life.
Yeah. I mean, it takes, a ton of courage, even still today, to stick up for something like that, something that can completely ruin your career. And it did for him. You know, it took years off of his boxing life. So it takes a lot of courage, but, you know, I mean, he's been like, I heard my grandfather was like shot at one time, but, you know, you look at the people like during his era, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. I mean, what happened to these people? These people that took a stand, they got assassinated. So I know he must have feared for his life. And, you know, he was taking a stand that was literally life or death. You know, someone could have assassinated him at any point, and I wouldn't be here today to talk about it.
Yeah, as heavyweight champion of the world, you're an idol, and you know the government know that more than anyone. And if we've got this idol standing up and saying, "Don't go to war, don't join the army, don't go to Vietnam," they ain't done nothing to us. Like they're like, oh, a little too much truth in the air from this guy. Right. And I mean, it's quite surprising that he wasn't assassinated, to be fair, because they drafted him in the army as a tool to be like, you know, as they've done with many athletes in the past, of look guys, look kids, everyone go and join the army. Your favorite baseball player, basketball player, fighters there. And he was not having none of it. How courageous, you know, to say no to that. And there's a clip where he's standing up in front of all of these people in the crowd, and obviously mainly white people, and arguing with them and justifying it, explaining, you know, like, you're the ones not giving me my rights. Why am I going to go and fight for you?
Exactly.
So they banned him from fighting for a few years in the prime of his career, which was a real shame looking back at it. Because he was a different fighter when he came back, but he evolved and he adapted, and I think people have a lot of respect for the fact that he managed to do that, because he became a tough fighter rather than the showboater.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, that made for more brutal fights, but he wouldn't back down.
It's the same in life. He just wouldn't.
Back then, obviously, a lot of people in society turned on him. Right now, Muhammad Ali is a hero. And I think, you know, a lot of people watching this won't really understand. Like, at the time, there was a smear campaign against him. The government and everyone was trying to dirty his name and say, this guy won't fight for you, and make him seem as negative as humanly possible. And only, I feel like, when the Vietnam War was proven to be a mistake, did people start to wake up and realize, hang on a second, this guy had the right idea. Right. Have you spoken to your family about this time and what that was like?
We've spoken on it, throughout my entire life, literally. And, that's what separates my grandfather from not only being a boxer, but just being the kind of human he was what he stood for outside of boxing, against the war, for civil rights. He put it all on the line, and he was willing literally to give up his life for it. And you just don't see a lot of people in history that are willing to do that. That's what separated him. And the biggest thing is that after all that happened, after they stripped him of his title and they were about to put him in prison, after
he got
all that,
sentenced to 5 years, I think.
Yeah. And then after that sentence got turned over, after that, he came back and became heavyweight champion of the world again. And I think that's why people respect him so much, because he was able to throw away everything for standing up for something, and he was able to gain it all back just based off of his conviction alone.
Yeah, it's truly amazing. Like to defy the odds in the first place and beat Sonny Liston, No one thought that would happen. He was one of the biggest underdogs in fight history. Sonny Liston was like the Mike Tyson of the era, for those who don't know. And then there was more Sonny Listons when he came back from his ban. 3 years out of the game, sitting and not training. And then all of these guys, like these killers like Joe Frazier and George Foreman, are waiting for him, and they look indestructible. And then he comes out after nearly going to jail but standing up for people, and then beats these unbeatable guys once again. It's just, it's staggering. I mean, what kind of relationship did he have with people like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X?
From what I heard, they were very close. I remember hearing stories when I was young that my grandfather was so devastated hearing about the passing of Malcolm X, because he was so close to these guys. Even though Martin Luther King wasn't Muslim, he was still his brother in arms because they stood for something. And I know that time period must have been super devastating for my grandfather, seeing his actual friends, being assassinated for no reason, for just sticking up for what they believe in. And that's what he was doing. It must have been scary, and he continued to do it, and most people would have been like, listen, these guys are getting killed, for doing what I'm doing right now. I'm going to stop. And he didn't stop. So, I mean, it's a lot of courage. When I think of my grandfather, I just think of courage.
That's it. You've nailed it, mate. Honestly, true courage. And you watch his story and you watch his fights, and you just think, how did this guy even exist? Like, really does. It blows my mind, some of the things he did in the way. And like you say, like Martin Luther King, I've seen one little clip of them together, and obviously different religions, but both standing together and showing love for one another. It was a really heartwarming moment, actually, that. The fact that he didn't go quiet. I mean, look, when those two guys get shot in the way that they did, 99.9% of other people would have been like, I'm going to be a bit more quieter about this. Yeah.
Exactly.
There was some great fights. The George Foreman one and the rivalry with Joe Frazier really feel like they stick out to me, because those were the guys who just seemed unbeatable at the time. What is it like for you watching those fights back? Because they are, brutal. The skill, the will, everything that went into them. It's hard to watch, actually, sometimes, and that's very rare. I say that about boxing, but it's just brutal.
Yeah. And I think it was so brutal because my grandfather was my grandfather, but he was also, it felt like he was the world's friend. Everyone felt like they knew him. And watching him get beat, even, in his later days, was like devastating. It was hard to watch. I don't even watch those fights. But the Rumble in the Jungle with George Foreman was my favorite fight of his, because it just stood for a lot more than just the fight. And I would actually watch that with my grandfather a ton of times.
What was it like to be there and do that with your grandfather?
He would be doing whatever. He would be, having a good time. If I put on that tape on my phone, he would be locked in, and we would just be staring at my phone for the next 30 minutes watching the fight. And I would ask him, like, certain things. I would say, hey, what did you say to this guy here? Or what did you do this? Because he would talk while he fought, but certain things he didn't remember. And it was just so much fun watching, the greatest fight of all time, in my opinion, with who I believe to be the greatest fighter of all time.
That's truly special, mate, honestly. And I've spoken to some people about you coming on, and the word "the greatest." I mean, yes, he said the greatest, and it almost became a nickname as much, but it was true. And because great isn't just about your ability in the ring. Great isn't about beating every generation that come after you. To me, I think greatness is like, it's about leaving that legacy and fighting everyone in their prime, going after anyone and everyone. He really showed that he was never going to back down to anyone. And like, I feel like now we're in an era where fighters are very selective and clever, and it's completely different. I mean, this guy was out here just anyone wants a pop at it, let's go, you know? And that people were terrified of George Foreman, you know, rightly so. I know someone who met him and they were like, like this guy was huge, like just chiseled. People were terrified of this guy. I seem to remember the news reporter saying, old Ali got no chance, yada, yada, yada. Just defied the odds so many times.
It really, it's like a superhero story.
When your grandfather passed, what was obviously a very sad time for the family, but how did the family deal with that?
That was another time period where I was just like, it was a total blur. But it was such a heartwarming experience. Just seeing how people reacted to him passing and seeing the streets flooded with people in Louisville was just, I mean, like it feels like a dream now because that whole time period was just so blurry to me.
How old were you when that happened?
It was just so hectic and sad, but you know, I was 15. I was 15.
That makes sense. You know, obviously you're a young guy even now, but like at 15 to lose someone who means so much to you guys, your brain probably was protecting you from sort of the heartbreak.
It just, you know, I don't remember small details, but you know, I'm glad because it was a very sad time, and what I do remember was great. It was what I do remember. It was like a celebration, seeing the people cheer him on in the streets. The whole world stopped. It felt like, you know, it's an honor, and I know he would have been extremely happy to see that he left that kind of impact on people.
There's a few. He had a few wives, and he had multiple children, obviously. So, were you guys able to come together, or was it quite divided at the time, or how did that work?
My grandfather brought us all together. You know, we were always, you know, Thanksgiving. Everyone would be at his house. Thanksgivings, we would go to his house. His birthday, we would go to his house. And because my immediate family lived so close, he lived in Arizona, we would constantly be driving down there to his house. But yeah, no, he made our family close. He made our family tight. And that's why our family is the way it is now. He brought us all together.
It's tricky for any family when it's a bit like that. But that's lovely that you guys were able to have that closeness. Despite obviously people having different mothers or whatever the situation was. Yeah. Do you think he had many regrets?
I don't know. You know, he was like, it seemed like his only fault was women. And he just,
human.
He just loved
He is human women, after all.
You know? Exactly. So he had to have something. And if he didn't have women, then I personally don't know what it would be. I'm sure he doesn't regret anything because everything turned out the way it was supposed to be. And I'm very happy that it turned out the way it did.
Yeah, the guy was an incredibly handsome 6'3" charismatic dude. So, I mean, it must have been hard batting off the advances, you know? Like Definitely before he became champion, but even after champion, you know, you had to get a security team to keep off the beautiful women. Wow. That is so funny. Yeah, I mean, obviously he was a religious man, but like, you know, no man is perfect.
Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect.
Fair play to him. I mean, did you follow in the footsteps and obviously, you know, join Islam yourself?
Yeah, no, I was born and raised to be Muslim, and like I said, you know, the way my grandfather was, that's exactly how I am in terms of conviction with race and religion, you know, because I'm biracial myself, my mom being black and my dad being white. I'm Muslim. My mom's Muslim. My family's Muslim. So, and we're practicing Muslims. So, I'm proud that I was raised the way I am to stay true to that.
Are your mother and father still together?
Yes.
Did you, growing up biracial, did that present any challenges to you coming from such a famous family, but obviously not necessarily looking exactly like your grandfather?
Yeah, of course. You know, it shows, you know, sometimes people say stuff. When I was little, people would say stuff, but at the end of the day, that doesn't, it would never really bother me because me and my grandfather were so close. If we were like distant and we were not close at all, it would definitely bother me. But my grandfather loved me. I loved him, and we just had the greatest of times together. And even my grandfather, early on in his career, he said things along the lines of, "You shouldn't mix races. You should stick with your own races." And even later on in his life, he took back that statement. Before I was even born, he took back that statement, and he loved me and my brother. And so I don't worry about the stuff people say in terms of that.
Yeah, there was a few interviews where he would say things, and then you see him later on in your life, in his life, and you're like, yeah, you softened and you evolved, and at that time,
and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, when I listened to, was it Elijah Muhammad and then Malcolm X, it felt like, to me at least, and this is someone who knows very little about Islam, but that one of them had a bit more of a progressive attitude towards, like Elijah Muhammad seemed an old school kind of guy, for want of a better word.
Very, very.
And like everything evolves, and as I guess religion does too. And it's nice that I suppose you can learn more about him even now to this day as you get older, because what I found after I've lost people in my life, I've lost a parent, and what you find is as you get older, you weirdly reconnect with them through experiences of becoming older yourself, and you're like, oh, so when you're going into your fights in your mid-20s, late 20s, I'm sure you're going to be kind of having little conversations with him in your head almost, of like, oh, what if this is what you were feeling when you were having this fight, or
And you know what? There's a quote that I was actually saying before my last fight. The quote is, a man is not dead while his name is still spoken. And since I've started fighting, everyone's been speaking about my grandfather. Obviously, they've been speaking about me being his grandson. But that being said, my grandfather is still alive. He's still very much alive and around as long as people are talking about him. And that's the way it feels. So I do feel like I'm reconnecting with him. And, honestly, fighting might even be healthy for me in grieving, honestly, because it's just I feel close. I feel close to him. I feel closer to him now than ever, honestly.
I'm not surprised in the slightest, mate, because after my first, I do a little bit of boxing, and after my first spar, I got my head punched in, as you do, and I had a good cry afterwards because I was thinking about my mother, and just like fighting is so emotional at times, especially if you're losing. And I can totally imagine that closeness coming back, because you're just going to be able to empathize with so much of his story now when you go back and watch those first fights and almost feel like what it was like for him a little bit more than what you ever could have done had you not have been a boxer.
It's very true. It's very true.
What is the Kronk gym like? Because we hear it's very, it's all about knockouts, and you've proved that. Sugar Hill seems to be a very smart guy. So what is it like training with him?
It's amazing, it's amazing on a spiritual side of things, because he's continuing the legacy of his uncle, Emmanuel Stewart, which I believe is one of the greatest boxing trainers of all time. And, here I am in the shadow of my grandfather, who is the greatest fighter of all time to me. And he's able to talk to me about these things, and he's able to teach me about boxing, which I'm a lot more understanding. I'm a lot more eager to listen to him when I know he knows what I'm going through in terms of continuing a legacy. So I just feel like we're able to connect very easily, and I'm able to learn from him very well because of that connection.
And what kind of fighter do you think you're going to evolve into? I
think I'm going to be aggressive. I think I'm definitely going to have my own unique style, but definitely with Sugar in my corner, he likes knockouts, and that's what we're looking to do, at all times. And I'm looking forward to evolving. I've only been with Sugar for a couple months, so
wow.
This next fight is going to be very special.
Because when I watched you, not being critical because it's your first couple of fights, but I was like, this guy ain't throwing the jab that much compared to what, like a lot of fighters, it's jab, like, you know, then you were all in, and it was spectacular.
Yeah.
But I was worried. I'm like, this kid might be too aggressive. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So
no, you know, I'm still learning. There's so many mistakes that I've made. You know, little mistakes. I've only been with him for a couple months. I'm just imagining now, what am I going to look like after being with him for a year? What about 2 years? And you can see his work on display with Tyson Fury, with the way he did his last 2 fights. You can see the way Sugar works.
Sugar's transformed Tyson, in my opinion. We're seeing a whole another side. He's so much scarier than he's ever been. In fact, now that he's putting his weight through his punches and leaning on people and just roughing them up.
That's all Sugar teaches.
Yeah, it's proper pro boxing as opposed to the amateur style, which is obviously a lot more point fighting. So you were with other trainers before him then. Were they the amateur trainers?
Yeah, before I was with Sugar, I was with Abel Sanchez in Big Bear, who was Triple G's former trainer.
Wow.
And I was with him for a couple months. I learned a ton from him, and then I went straight from him with Sugar. And I mean, I feel like I'm able to learn very quickly from Sugar. So, you know, there's no telling where I can go. You know, the more time I spend with him, the more I learn from him.
And how did you get connected with Sugar? Was this anointed? This guy's the grandson of Muhammad Ali, we got to get hold of him type thing, or?
No, it was so weird. My uncle, who's now my manager, knew Sugar's uncle. And he knew Emmanuel Stewart. He actually was the one who took him to the hospital, unfortunately, when Emmanuel Stewart, obviously he had cancer.
Uh-huh.
So my uncle knew him very well, and he just got in contact with Sugar. Like, I mean, the first time me and Sugar met, it wasn't like meeting a complete stranger because our family had known each other previously.
Yeah. There's that familiarity there, I guess. And it is so great that you guys are both continuing legacies on, which can only make you understand each other better as coach and fighter, I guess. Because Emmanuel Stewart, my God, I mean, what he did for Lennox Lewis, for example, amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know if Lennox Lewis gets the title back without him, you know. So
exactly.
Yeah, they're good at transforming people, and you've got Bob Arum behind you as well. You really have got some big names behind you, guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I'm repeating history here. Bob Arum was my grandfather's promoter. You know, so it's crazy. It's crazy, but it's so cool. You know, the story behind all of this.
What was it like meeting Bob and getting his support? Because, I mean, for those who don't know, Bob is a very old guy, but he is a huge power in the world of boxing.
Obviously, Bob Arum has known my family for so many years. He's traveled with my mom, you know, to events and whatnot. But my first time formally meeting him was right before I signed with Top Rank. And it was with my uncle. And I met him. We discussed, we had like a little meeting. He had people vet me. People go watch me in the gym and see me train. And they're like, okay, you know, this kid isn't just someone who's looking to make money or something like that. You know, this kid's got some skill. And then Sugar was able to give them extra confidence, saying, yeah, you know what, I can turn this kid into something good. So Bob Arum took that chance on me. You know, he allowed me to sign with Top Rank, and I'm indebted to him.
Where is it you think that you want to go with this? Like, how far do you want to take this boxing game? Are you hopeful to be a world champion one day?
Honestly, wherever Sugar takes me, I'm willing to go. I'm here for the journey. I love boxing. That's what I'm passionate about. And I'm trying to box not just for myself, but something bigger for myself, bigger than myself, you know, and that gives me the courage to keep on going. So if Sugar takes me one day to being that world champion, I'll be very happy.
Do you think you when you say bigger than yourself, do you mean going in a similar direction to your grandfather in terms of helping people using your profile?
Yeah, that's all I'm about. That's how I was raised, and people are going to start seeing that, because that's how I was raised. I know nothing else other than doing that.
What kind of things do you think you might do, say, if you do make it to the top of the mountain?
I don't even need to make it to the top of the mountain. Even where I'm at right now, I have enough of a little platform to speak on what I believe in. And, obviously things that I'm very passionate about are race and my religion. And being that I am biracial and, half of my family is black, there's still racism going on today. And I was very vocal about that, on social media when that was going on here in America. I'm just, anytime I see wrongdoing, anytime I see something that I don't believe in, I'll say something.
Well, that's very powerful and good on you, mate, because obviously, in the last couple of years, there's the awful scenes of George Floyd's death were terrible. And, I wonder what your grandfather would make of that now, for him to know that after all the work he did, things like this are still occurring in his grandson's life.
Yeah. I mean, racism will never not exist, unfortunately. But, people like my grandfather make strides and make it better. People like Martin Luther King make it better. And, during that time, that was a horrible time in, American history. And COVID was going on. But I was out here in Vegas protesting when that stuff was going on. During the pandemic, during the height of COVID. And it's unfortunate that I even had to do that, but that's what it is. And I feel like that's what my grandfather would be doing if he was around. Yeah.
When you were protesting, what was it like being amongst the people and making a stand like that for something you believe in so passionately?
It's powerful because, it's something that I care about extremely. I'm very passionate about race in religion, more so than boxing. That stuff is very, very important and serious to me. But unlike how some of the media was portraying the protesting, it was all peaceful. Everyone there, and it was great to see. There were Asian Americans there were Mexicans there were white people, black people. It wasn't just black people protesting against George Floyd. It was a whole, it was everybody. It was a spectrum of different people. And that was great to see. And it just shows that, it is possible to make, these strides even today.
What's life like for you every week now? What's it like day to day?
Honestly, if I had a camera on me at all times, it would be very, very boring. As a 21-year-old, I've never drank or smoked in my life. I've never done drugs. So I live a very healthy lifestyle and very boring. After the gym, I'm in college, so I get my schoolwork done, and that's all. I go from home to gym, and that's about it.
Well, obviously you mentioned your grandfather had a certain release. Do you have anything that you sort of, I don't know, video games? What's your thing?
Yeah, no, definitely. I love playing video games. I unfortunately haven't had any time lately to play them, but I love playing video games. But my vice, my escape would definitely be sweets, and that's what my grandfather's was towards when I knew him.
Yeah,
it was sweets.
I heard of that.
Those are hard to stay away from. Very hard to stay away from. But
yeah,
everyone's got to have something.
But it's really great that you're living that dedicated life, because unfortunately, that's the downfall of a lot of boxers when they don't live the life, as they say. What do you think of MMA? I'm just wondering, do you watch MMA a lot, or are you mainly just boxing?
I'm mainly boxing, but definitely if there's a big fight going on, I have a ton of friends that are in the UFC and friends that are MMA fighters. So I really loved Khabib.
I can imagine. Khabib's hero is your grandfather. I don't know if you've seen him say that.
Yeah, no, I've seen him. I've seen him say that, and that was one of the reasons. Like, I'm biased. If someone says something nice about my grandfather, I automatically like them. I don't have to see anything else. But yeah, no, he was truly amazing.
I think he said on the Mike Tyson.
If there's ever a big fight, I'll watch.
He was on the Mike Tyson podcast, and he said something about if he could meet any fighter ever, it would have been Ali, which I thought was really nice of him.
He never met him. He never met him. Yeah, I wish I would have known he was such a big fan. You know, I would have had him meet him while my grandfather was still here. Yeah.
Well, this is just the start of your journey, but I'm very excited to see how it goes. You've got a fight coming up this December.
December 11th, yes.
What is the opponent like? Has he been announced yet?
He has not been announced yet. I've heard little things about who it may be. But at the end of the day, Sugar doesn't even like thinking about opponents. He says if you train the way that you're supposed to train, it doesn't matter who they put in front of you. And that's kind of the way that I've started to believe. So it doesn't matter right now who the opponent is, to me at least.
I mean, I'm hearing a lot of good things. You quote your trainer, which shows you believe in him. And I mean, we've seen lately, obviously with Anthony Joshua, if you don't believe in your coach, it can be a nightmare when you get in that ring.
Definitely.
And you're living the life. I see no reason why you haven't got the talent to go all the way, mate. Like when I watched your first couple of fights, I was like, this is a real fighter here. You've got it all, and that the main thing was that you just delivered straight up, bang, like first round went after him.
Yeah, and you know what? Maybe the approach might be too aggressive. Whatever it may be, Sugar works on it in the gym, and this is only my third fight coming up in December, and it's at Madison Square Garden, which is a dream. But I'm really excited for this one because I really feel like I'm gonna look spectacular this one. Because it's just more time to learn with Sugar. It's more time to, correct the mistakes I felt I made my first two fights.
From memory, you rocked the white shorts with the stripe. Is that going to be a continuation? Are you going to rock that for the rest of your career, possibly?
I love those shorts. I'm going to definitely add a little bit of a tweak to them just to make it a little bit more myself.
Yeah.
But, I said I retired my grandfather's shorts because I wore his shorts for my first fight. I think that's not entirely true. I think I'll wear those again for my last fight, whenever that may be.
That's cool.
But it's no time soon, so those are definitely locked up for now.
All right, I usually end these interviews with a question, and I'm interested to see how you answer it because I'd like to ask the same question to you in a few years after you've hopefully conquered a good few fights. How would you like to be remembered?
Honestly, I would like to be remembered by standing for something, not just being a boxer. That would be a serious loss in my book if I'm just remembered as being Nico the boxer. So I want to be able to be remembered for something more than boxing, something bigger than boxing. Well,
it's been a pleasure talking to you, Nico. I think that you've got your head screwed on, as we say in the UK. And for a 21-year-old guy, you speak very well. You seem to have it all in front of you. You've got the right people around you. I wish you the best of luck. I'm going to be supporting you for the rest of your career. And I'm sure you'll make your family proud, man.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Nah, it's a pleasure. And if everyone wants to follow the journey, I'll put the links for your socials in the description below. And hopefully, if you're ever in the UK, you're more than welcome to come and we can watch some fights together.
Absolutely. The UK was a serious fan base for my grandfather.
Oh, yes.
And they're already, I don't even know if I should be saying this, but they're already discussing me going to the UK next year. So that is going to be really exciting. That would be ridiculous.
One of your grandfather's most famous sort of press conferences that he did was in the north of England, where I'm from. And they couldn't believe that Muhammad Ali was there. Like they could not. And even now, people are like, Muhammad Ali came here? And that was what he was the champion of the world for, because he actually went all over the world and fought all over the world. And I think that's been sacrificed for more money, unfortunately, by fighters nowadays. But maybe that's something you could continue as well. Well, you take care, brother, and I wish you absolutely the best of luck. And I look forward to seeing your fight on December the 11th.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolute pleasure. You take care, man. Thanks. Well, that was the 21-year-old grandson of Muhammad Ali, Nico Ali Walsh. A really nice kid. Obviously, nowhere near the journey yet of a lot of the people I interview, but I'm a huge fan of Muhammad Ali, and I really wanted to talk to him about his grandfather, talk about his career. I really enjoyed it. The lad seems like he's got the right attitude for the fight game, and it's going to be exciting to see what he does next. I hope you enjoyed the interview. Something a little different. If you did enjoy it, hit that like button, stay subscribed to the True Geordie YouTube channel, and I'll see you on the next Pay and Game podcast.